Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change your life. Heichaltzu, Kuntres Heichaltzu. Just to start off with a quick story that there's a Mrs. Azurkin. She lives on Eastern Parkway, and actually she speaks to him for Chassidus every once in a while. So we actually were at a house when her husband before he passed away, and big Talmid Chacham. And so the story goes, for years they used to have guests coming all the time, and that were like simple people in the sense that they didn't weren't very much into gashmistic things. So they had like random chairs in the house. There wasn't any specific order. So one time, and they clearly didn't care about the aesthetics of it and stuff. But one time they saw someone met the husband in a furniture store buying a chair, and they were like, it was odd. Like, what is he doing buying a chair? And he was looking for a very specific chair. So basically, the story goes that one of the guests was a regular. She complained she had some back issues, and she needed like a specific chair. She wasn't telling them that they should buy the chair for her, but she was just talking about the specific chair. And in order to care for his guest and have the best time possible, I guess, so he went and bought the chair. She's a beautiful Ahavas Yisroel. Even though he himself, he didn't care, but for them, he did. Okay. We're starting chapter 6, page 42 on the top. In the previous chapter, the Rebbe Rashab explained that there are two approaches to division. One that leads to strife and separation, and a second that makes possible a comprehensive state of unity. Yeah, it's one type of division that leads to unity, ultimately, and one that leads to total separation. He developed this concept further in the chapter that follows, introducing the fundamental theme of the Maimon. And this is, like I told before, this is the main point of the Maimon. The difference need not lead to division amongst people, and that the community can attain true oneness when each of its members develops his potential and simultaneously recognizes the need to bond with others. And I think this is sort of a very fundamental issue that needs to be addressed in Listening Crown Heights. That because people are different, it's not necessarily needs to be an issue. The differences used out in the right way, and realizing that even though I have my differences, I need the other person. We're all one family. We need to be connected. So then that can bring us together. And that's sort of, I think, the mistake that we think we're right and everyone else is wrong. And it can't be someone else's way. Whereas what we're saying here is that we can have all those differences, and that's fine, because ultimately we all need each other, and that can bring us much closer. Just like we talked about yesterday in the Army, that if everyone wants to be the paratrooper and jump out of an airplane, but no one wants to be the pilot, no one wants to give them the food, and no one wants to organize their equipment, it's not going to work. Everyone has her distinct role that they have to give. And that's what we're going to discuss even more. So to clarify, and again, still it's very talking about very Kabbalistic concepts, but yeah, whatever. I enjoy it, not because I get stuck in the scholar aspect of it, but because that gives us a better understanding of the way God works. And more understand the way God works, the more we can appreciate God in our lives and what he does. That's how I think you look at it. So to clarify, further, the concept of division, which brings about unity mentioned in the previous chapters, concealed within every entity is its antithesis. So this is a very interesting point we're saying here, that deep down within you, there's also the opposite. And you can think about it in very physical terms. In fire, one time I was trying to clear out some wax or something for like candle holders. So I lit a match, and the match was using the wax, like it was burning up. But then for whatever reason, it got pretty high. It was in the bathroom, it got pretty high. So I took water to put it out, and the oxygen in the water caught on fire. And it's huge. It was pretty crazy. It was like a huge fire. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like I was thinking the water would put it out. But within the fire, there's also water. I mean, within the water, there's also fire, like the oxygen. That's what we're going to discuss. So this is true even of the soul's essential powers. So even deep down, and we'll see, because deep down it's all one, so there's everything there. So there's it and its opposite. In Chassidus, the term atzmi, plural, I don't know why he puts the plural here, but atzmiim, translated as essential, is often used in a general sense to refer to the levels of the soul or godly light that are not specific in nature. It's essential. It's not a chesed or a gvura. It's godliness and deep levels. It's not defined by anything. But, that are not specific in nature, or rather refer to the soul powers of light that are subsumed in their source to the extent that their individual identity is not felt. Where they're so it's like in front of the king. You all melt away into one thing. We're all part of the king and his rulership. In the context of this mimer, the term essential powers refers to the original potential for the powers of the souls as they exist in a pre-conscious state. See, so in our term, when we're talking about it in here, I put a different mimer, and based off what we're discussing, you can explain it differently. But according to what we're explaining here, based off our mimer, it's the pre-conscious state, the soul as the soul is. So at that point, there's no distinctions. The Rebbe Rashab is emphasizing that our interrelation of the soul's power with each other does not apply only on a conscious level, but even as they exist in the very source. In our sources, we're very much connected. We have that differences, but we're connected. So each of which has its antithesis incorporated within it. Here, the Rebbe Rashab is speaking about a level in which the powers of the soul, although they are in a pre-conscious state, have begun to assume an individual identity. Even so, incorporated within each power is its antithesis. So we're talking about a level deep within us, subconscious, but already it's like kids and babies when they're like, even they can talk and they have formulated opinions. You can already see that they're very different one from the other. And that's what he's saying. Even though it's a very pre-conscious, it's all like they're consciously putting an effort to be a specific way, but even deep down within them, they already have differences. And he's saying here, they also have the opposite to each other. This is so by virtue of the soul's essence, which transcends even the essential powers and contains all of them perfect in synthesis and such a deep level that everything is there. Like the drop of semen, that everything is there. Not just the arm, but the whole body. The Rebbe Rashab is referring to a concept explained in detail in other sources. Chassidus. The essence of the soul is a simple, singular entity. Above all identifications with specific powers or qualities. So reach a deep enough level, there's no distinctions. Just like in the family, when you go further back, we're just family, but when you go into more details, more as expressed, there's parents, there's kids, there's boys, there's girls, and then you can go even more down where everyone is very different, and everyone has their characteristics and what their strengths are and how they look and things like this. But if you go deep, you go back, we're all family. Every person has a fundamental I that cannot be quantified or described in any manner or form. It is a spark of godliness and, like God, is unlimited and compounded and defined. This is a very important point. This mentions in Tanya, in Parak Beis, that we have a neshama, that neshama and its source is godly. Just like God is unlimited, uncompounded, undefined, so too, that level within us we have is the same. However, as a person functioning in his everyday life, he uses various powers. But when we come down and we act in this physical world, so then we use specific things. We're not using that level, such as intellect and emotions. The relationship between these powers and the essence of the soul require detailed explanation. And we have to understand how these relate to each other. Because on the one hand, these powers are very different from the essence of the soul. How we express ourselves with our intellect and emotion is very different from the essence of a neshama, as it is unlimited and uncompounded. They have a specific identity and definition, each related to the function it performs. On the other hand, it cannot be said that their source is outside of the essence of the soul, but also on the same hand that this seichel, this intellect, this emotions are coming from the essence. So is it separated? Are we distinct or are we unlimited? Are we compounded or uncompounded? Are we defined or undefined? Because were that to be true, if they're two separate things, then it would be difficult to understand how they became implanted within the soul. How can you get from one from the other, from unlimited to limited? They're two separate things. It wouldn't make sense. So we're saying they're all connected. So how does it work? So accordingly, Chassidus explains that within the essence of the soul, there exist all the different potentials and powers that are latent, later revealed. So whatever is going to be revealed later is already there in potential. Indeed, the use of the term potential has to be clarified because a potential does in fact exist. If it's potential means it's already there at some level. We're talking about the essence where everything is unlimited. So how do you have something limited that's coming later on? But we'll try to keep it simple. Though it has not become actual. So Chassidus explains this by the analogy of a fire within a coal. So how can you have on one hand the limitedness, on the other hand the unlimitedness? It's like a coal that has the potential for fire. Although the fire is not evident or visible, it exists as a separate entity distinct from the coal. So the coal has fire, but it doesn't have fire, because that's the analogy, is not entirely appropriate description for the manner of which our different powers exist in the essence of the soul. For the essence of the soul is, as stated above, utterly simple, uncompounded, and undefined. Where the power of the soul to exist with its essence and distinct potentials, it would be compounded entity. However, the fact that later the soul exhibits the powers compel us to say that they exist within its essence in a manner abstract and rarefied as the levels exist, as that level of existence is. So this is very complicated. This is coming from famous Shashik Dimu Ayin Base, which is probably the most deepest memoir. Essentially saying that to keep it simple, in our source, in the source of the neshama, as it is above, as it is unlimited, it has also somehow the potential to become distinct and have different intellects and emotions. So the essence of the soul transcends even the essential power contained within it. And ultimately, we're going to use this to understand within ourselves and the community and people around us how we can come together. So the essence of the soul transcends even the essential powers contained within it, and yet bears them all. So it transcends, but it has everything. The Rebbe Rashab uses the term bear to refer to the manner in which the essence of the soul contains the possibility. Yecheles is the term used in Chassidus for the different powers to later merge and to exist in abstract and rarefied manner described above. So the Rebbe Rashab uses the word yecheles, meaning has the potential, means the ability. And again, because we're having this discussion that in essence, if it's all simple and all undefined, then how do we have definition later that's so distinct? So within the essence of the soul, the power coalesces in total unity. So as it is in its essence, all becomes one. For on that rung, no separate particular powers exist, not even in a state of essential powers, above the possibility of conscious expression. That you go deep enough that it's not even the state of essential powers, that as they are in the source, it's even above that. It's like a total oneness. Just like you look at you have like a drop of semen versus the baby, that it's incomparable. As the powers emerge from the soul's essence in the initial preliminary state of emanation, the soul's powers cannot be said to exist as discernible entities. So can't even define them in distinct. I see the chachma, I see the chesed. You don't see anything, you see godliness. Nonetheless, in potential, they still exist as powers, as indicated by the term essential powers. But they still have, and this is a common back and forth. It's oneness, but it's also like it's total unity, but it has in it everything that can come out, even the opposites. But at the same time, it's this unity. So even this cannot be said regarding the existence of the soul powers with the essence of the soul. As mentioned, it is inappropriate to speak of any distinct potential existing within the essence of the soul. But nevertheless, it is a logical imperative that the essence includes the possibility of all powers in the soul. And again, so on one hand, we're saying that doesn't make sense to say that there's all these distinctions in such a high level, but in the end of the day, you have to say that all distinctions exist, coming from there somehow. We'll finish up here. For all the powers do emanate from it. Thus, if they emanate from the essence of the soul, the very least a potential, abstract and rarefied as it may be, but they must exist within the essence. He's saying it must be there. And we'll continue tomorrow. But essentially, I guess the lesson that you can take away from this is that the distinctions and the differences that people have, it's coming from a very deep level. But we're all coming in the same how, we're all coming from the same place. We come from the same place, but we all also have these distinctions. So the distinctions should never, that's a very important point, that it should never cause conflict. And I find like a problem nowadays in talking about, let's say, politics. That, I think politics didn't change that much in essence. It just, the way we approach it and the way we discuss it has changed. And that's what we're saying, that essentially we're all together, we're all one. We come out, we express ourselves differently, we can have different opinions, but there's difference of opinions is not allowed to divide us. And we're sort of built this way. They're meant to have different opinions. We're all not the same, all different. We'll have different ways of seeing things, different way of doing things. But that shouldn't stop us. Nowadays, one of the things you can't talk about is politics. You think 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have issues in politics? They did, but I think we got stuck. And what we have to realize is, back in our source, we're all one. We're all the same. And in that level, there's also potential for these distinctions that are going to be expressed later. And we don't have to get so caught up with it. And we shouldn't be very judgmental. To be continued tomorrow.